And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Alix Steel. We're counting you down to the closing bell, here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast, joined by Scarlet Fu in Studio 2, Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec in the radio booth or fishbowl, whatever they're calling it these days. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms as we sort of break down the market moves on the day. Nice to see you, Carol and Tim.
Nice to see you. Welcome back.
Yeah,
welcome back. We missed you.
Absolutely. I missed you too.
Having said that, it's interesting to see. Here we are. It feels like markets are a little bit tired, the equity markets, but we're actually seeing some selling into the close here. I'm just kind of watching my Bloomberg, which is not, I don't feel like a trade that we have seen in a little bit of a time. So again, a lot of economic news this week, so we'll see whether or not that changes it. It's also, I feel like, a holiday shortened week.
Holiday shortened week, yeah. You know what never goes on vacation is Bitcoin. So we might be seeing some selling into the close for U.S. equities, but Bitcoin higher by 7.4% today. It's the first time the token has been above $70,000 in more than a week, up to $71,000 as we speek.
And it's taking all those Bitcoin-related, crypto-related companies up with it. Whoever's doing gainers today has plenty to choose from. If they're going to look at Bitcoin names.
I actually was changing 2 minutes ago.
But this is what I find so interesting. I was talking about this with Romaine just a second ago, is that, yep, Supermicro, best performing stock in the S&P, but the third is Constellation Energy, and they provide energy for the companies like a Supermicro to do the AI and all the data center stuff. So it's like one story that seems to have like octopus arms at this point.
All right, as we get the closing bells here in New York, a mixed bag, but of course, we have to point out this is coming off of that record run that we saw last week, a record run that we've seen all year long. So a bit of a breather, a bit of a give back, but still holding some of the highest levels we've seen in our lifetimes. The Dow Jones Industrial average above 39,000, though it is below that on the day, down by about 160 points or 0.4% lower. The S&P down about 16 points or 0.3%, while the Nasdaq is going to close out the day lower by about 44 points or 0.3% as well. And I was just telling you this, the Russell 2000 holding in the green here on the day, oscillating between gains and losses, but finishing out the day higher by 2 points or about 0.1%.
All right, good to know. So the Russell in the green. Going back to the S&P 500, so those big cap names. Scarlet, we've got 187 names to the upside, so gaining in the Monday trade, but more to the downside, 311 to be exact, 5 unchanged. So really kind of more of a risk-off trade in today's session.
Yeah, especially with the S&P and the other indexes swooning in the final minutes of trading today. Look at the IMAP, plenty of red there. You've got industrials, tech, and real estate investment trusts all down, but none of them losing more than 0.7%. On the flip side, those that bucked the decline, energy, and Alix, there's your Constellation Energy. It's leading the way up for the energy index, and utilities and materials.
All right, so let's get to some of the gainers. Don't judge me in terms of who I chose. Boeing was up 3.9% at its highs today, finishing the day with about a 1.4% gain. You guys know the story. We all know the story. We've been saying it. It was a big one when it broke before the market opened this morning. The company making some major executive changes, senior executive changes, among them CEO Dave Calhoun announcing that he will step down at the end of the year, but also changes in terms of the board and who is really running the big part of the business. But nonetheless, investors happy to see some kind of change at that company, at least starting amid all of its problems and concerns over the 737 series. All right, Micron, it is the number 2 gainer in the S&P 500, number 1 gainer in the NASDAQ 100, finishing with a gain of more than 6% today. It is its 7th straight positive session, so we're talking about maybe around, 30% over that span. I didn't quick do the math, but close to it. But nonetheless, we're talking about a record run here on this company. And a lot of it has to do with the company's results from last week. It had a strong sales forecast. We broke it down. We talked about it, buoyed by demand for AI hardware. So that play continues to be on the minds of investors and pushing Micron higher. Lucid Group.
And not just hardware, though. It's really the memory stuff. I was actually surprised I was off, but I saw that move last week. And that's really about this idea that once you run all that data using whatever chips you got from NVIDIA, you got to store all that data somewhere. And well, that's where Micron comes in, right?
Yeah, exactly. The hardware side of it. Yeah, exactly. So really significant. So that one's a standout. I just want to mention quickly, Lucid Group, it's at its high, was up almost 21%, finishing the day with about a 5.5% gain, getting a $1 billion cash injection from its biggest investor. So we're talking about an affiliate of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. And finally, I have to mention Reddit, which was up 30% here. It's third day since its IPO. So it's up about 75% in those 3 days. But again, another another 30% move to the upside. So investors continuing to like that name, or just, I don't know, like that it's IPO'd recently.
Well, speaking of tech, let's talk about mega cap tech, because shares of those companies pulling the S&P 500 lower today. Among them, Microsoft, Apple, and Meta Platforms. Apple finishing the day down 0.8%. This all because the European Commission said Monday that Apple and Google's App Store rules will be targeted in the first probes under the Digital Markets Act. Also, how Google's search results might unfairly preference its own services, and how Apple may make it harder for users to choose alternatives in its Safari browser. We should note an Apple spokesperson said the company is confident it does comply with the DMA. You'll recall just last week that the Justice Department and 16 attorneys general sued Apple, accusing the company of violating antitrust laws by blocking rivals from accessing hardware and software features on its devices. Also, let's take a look at shares of United Airlines, which fell after Bloomberg News reported that U.S. aviation authorities are considering drastic measures to curb growth at the company. Shares down 3.4% today. This including preventing the carrier from adding new routes following a series of safety incidents. The FAA has discussed temporary actions that it may take with the airline's leadership in recent days. That's according to people with knowledge of the matter. And also shares of Take-Two Interactive. They fell as much as 7% on the day today, closed down 4% after Kotaku reported that the production of Grand Theft Auto had started to fall behind, and the video game could miss its 2025 release window. The video game website cited unnamed sources there. Shares down more than 4% today. And I do want to talk real briefly about shares of Fisker, the EV company that we talked about last week. They fell 28% today. This after the company said in a regulatory filing that talks with a major automaker about an investment were terminated without a deal, which means the company needs to renegotiate terms for recent financing, or it could face the possibility of filing for bankruptcy protection. Shares were halted just before 10 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
News pending, and we don't have that news quite yet.
Do you think that has any correlation with the
I think it does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it does. I don't know for certain yet, Romaine. We'll have to wait and see, but I think they could be related.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal for that company. So guys, just quick check in here on the bond market. So yeah, you're seeing a little bit of heaviness here as bonds are on offer, yields move a little bit higher. But we had that 2-year auction today, which was actually quite successful. You saw a strong bid to cover. The yield was a little lower. Tomorrow we get 5 years, $67 billion. And then Wednesday we get $43 billion in the 7 years. So sort of healthily digesting the sales here so far of this week, guys.
You know, so interesting. I was just looking at the Fisker share price. What was it, 9 cents a share? So I'm thinking this gets us to our next story, that you could buy, what, 900,000?
Are you going to do math right now?
Well, I'm thinking of cocoa, right? It's gotten really, really expensive.
Don't make me do math. That's all
so
I ask.
it's getting close to $10,000. It was up more than $700 today, up 50% this month alone. So how many shares of Fisker could you buy? I know. Come on, Romaine, you're like quick on this math. Is it 900,000 shares of Fisker?
That feels hard. Why are you doing this stuff?
I don't know. So sorry.
This is literally a bad dream.
All right. So anyway, cocoa is more expensive than copper. It topped $9,000. As I said, it's up about about 50% this month alone. It's more than doubled already this year. So guys, all of those Easter bunnies and eggs, they're going to cost a lot. And it has to do with bad weather, crop disease, and West African growers where most of the world's cocoa is grown.
Yeah, you kind of need like perfect conditions, right? Like you can't have it too dry, you can't have it too windy because it knocks down the cocoa trees. It needs to be in the rainforest area. So like it's only a select area that you can actually grow all of this stuff. And there's underinvestment, regardless of the weather, guys. In a drought, it's underinvested, and that might be prolonged higher prices.
Okay, so speaking of those higher prices, Easter eggs are already getting more expensive due to last year's price jump. Some manufacturers are even making the size of bars smaller.
Shrinkflation.
What?
Or they're using other ingredients to soften the blow
Lots
here.
of marshmallows in those chocolate.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, the higher chocolate prices in stores right now reflect increases in cocoa from 2023. So next year is when those chocolate Easter eggs are going to get really pricey.
Yeah, I mean, we're already looking the prices have doubled. But I think when those new contracts come in, remember we had that strike. It was like a couple of years ago when we had cocoa prices go up. And then it got to the point where a lot of folks didn't want to honor the old contracts because they saw the new money. And I wonder if we're in for that again. I think the season kind of starts in May, or that selling season in May.
Because it's hard to hedge these things.
Yeah.
It's a little, oil is different, but it's hard to hedge this, especially if you're a farmer. So
Right.
that kind of adds into it. Wait, I'm going back. So wait, I'm making chocolate with more marshmallows? Is that what I'm doing?
No. You're
Is that
just
what's
going to
happening?
take out some chocolate, add some marshmallows, just add other cheaper ingredients.
No.
Ew.
Blasphemy.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Some
Blasphemy.
might.
I judge that.
I judge that too. All right. That's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage, we end on cocoa. Cocoa? Cocoa? How do you say it?
Cocoa.
Cocoa?
Coco, just own it.
All right. Cocoa. No, what do you? All right. It's a wrap. Sorry, it's, again, a Monday brain. All right, that'll do it for our cross-platform coverage. Radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We will see you again tomorrow.